Hello everyone. I've been thinking for days about whether I should even write this post. It feels like I'm throwing my family secrets out on the internet, but on the other hand, I really have no one around me that I can talk to right now. So I hope you don't judge me too harshly or think that I'm the world's worst daughter and sister. I'm really just trying to deal with a crazy situation. It feels like I've completely lost my footing, and I need to get this off my chest and probably get some advice. I'm 28 years old, my name is Isla, and I have an older sister named Evie, who is 32. My mom's name is Matilda, and my dad, who I always thought was my biological father, is named Kai. Everything turned upside down a few weeks ago when I decided to clean out the attic. I haven't lived at home for many years, but I was there to help my parents sort through some old boxes. Mom and Dad have been talking about moving or at least selling off a bunch of unnecessary stuff, and I offered to help. So I went up to the attic and started sorting through the boxes. You know how it can be: old clothes, some school yearbooks, Christmas decorations, etc. And then I found a small box filled with letters. I'm naturally curious, but I'm not the type to dig into other people's secrets just like that. I thought maybe they were love letters between Mom and Dad, so at first, I figured I would ask my mom before reading anything. But then I noticed that Dad's name wasn't on the letters. It was another man's name that I had never heard before, and they were addressed to my mom, Matilda. I don't know what got into me, but I suddenly felt extremely uncomfortable. Why did she have letters in the attic from an unknown man? Why was his name completely unfamiliar to me? I got a strange feeling in my stomach, almost like a warning signal. I couldn't shake the thought that I wanted to know what they were. And yes, I admit that I snooped. I opened one of the letters. I thought maybe it was something innocent, an old pen pal or something, but after reading just a couple of lines, I realized that this wasn't an ordinary conversation. I didn't read the whole letter at once because I was so shocked when I saw that the man clearly mentioned knowing that Mom had gotten pregnant after their meeting. He wanted a relationship with the child. He wrote something like, "I don't think it's right for me or for her that I'm not allowed to be a part of her life." I just stared at the words and felt my pulse rising. I skimmed further and saw hints that this wasn't the first letter he had sent. There was something like, "I hope you have read my previous letter and that you understand how serious I am. I don't expect miracles, but I would really like a chance to be her father too." I could barely breathe when I realized that he was most likely talking about me. Because I am the youngest daughter. Evie is 32, I am 28. So I tore open a few more letters and read feverishly. It was a conversation between this man and my mom, where he said he couldn't just pretend nothing had happened. She kept referring to my dad's name, Kai, saying she couldn't destroy her marriage, that she wasn't even sure whose child it was, but that she had basically decided that Kai was the father. At the same time, it was pretty clear that she had had an affair. I mean, I don't know what other word to use, she was unfaithful. There was no doubt about it. I think I sat up there in the attic for maybe half an hour, just staring at the letters. I was in shock. My first reaction was pure confusion. Why had I never been told this? Had Mom really gone behind Dad's back and accidentally gotten pregnant with someone else? Had she lied to me for 28 years about who my real father was? I don't know how long I sat there, but I felt like I had to pull myself together. I put everything back in the box. I took some photos of the letters with my phone because I wanted proof in case there was any discussion later, closed it, and took it downstairs. In the living room, both Mom and Dad were watching TV. I didn't know what to say. I just said that I didn't feel like cleaning anymore and that I was feeling a bit dizzy. Then I left. I thought that maybe there could be some reasonable explanation. You know, sometimes weird things happen in families, and you don't know all the details until you get an explanation. But I couldn't think of any explanation that would make this okay. Pretty quickly, my emotions turned into anger. I gathered my courage and called my sister Evie that same evening. Because I figured she was older, she had lived at home longer before moving out. Maybe she had noticed something. I asked her outright, and she went completely silent. Totally quiet. I could almost hear her inhale sharply. After a moment, she asked why I was asking. I told her that I had been up in the attic and found some letters, and I didn't really know what to do with that information. Then she started speaking very tensely. She admitted that she had known almost the whole time. She told me that she had overheard Mom talking on the phone with this guy when Evie was a teenager. She had confronted Mom and gotten a scolding, but also an explanation. Mom had made a mistake. Mom said it was a one-time thing, that she wouldn't do it again, and that it wasn't certain the child was his. Mom was completely devastated and begged Evie never to tell Kai. Evie was maybe 15 or 16 years old then and was terrified of splitting up the family, and according to her, she has kept quiet ever since. I was so angry. I felt completely betrayed. Why hadn't Evie told me? I know I wasn't old enough back then, but when I became an adult, why didn't she mention it then? I just exploded and told her that she had deceived me just as much, that she had let me live in a lie for years, that this was about my biological identity. She defended herself by saying she was scared. She said she didn't want to destroy the family, that she didn't want to hurt Dad because Dad, Kai, is actually her biological father. And she said she couldn't risk him leaving them. She thought that if she told him, he might leave Mom immediately, and then the family would break apart. I nearly screamed into the phone, but how can you want him to live in a lie all these years? He deserved to know the truth. And then she said something that made me even angrier. She said, "But Isla, it was just one time, and it's not worth destroying everything over one mistake." I don't know why I said it, but I said something like, "You don't even know if it was only once. And even if it was just once, it's insane to lie about a child's paternity." And then she went completely silent. I felt something was coming. There was a tense silence for a few seconds, and then I heard her let out a deep sigh. That's when it came out, Mom is a serial cheater. She has had multiple affairs over the years, not just that one 28 years ago. And not only that, she is apparently still cheating today. Evie claimed that Mom can't live without being free, but Kai never wanted an open relationship. Apparently, Mom had talked about wanting to see other people, but Kai had said a firm no, so she just did it secretly. I couldn't believe my ears. I know that my mom and I haven't been super close, but I had no idea that she had some kind of, I don't even know what to call it, some uncontrollable sexual drive. And that she had lied to Dad all these years. And Evie had apparently known, at least part of it. She had helped cover it up. She said she did it because she didn't want to break Dad. That he was a good man and that he didn't deserve to have his heart shattered. I felt so sad for my dad. He is the only normal one here, as far as I know. He has always loved Mom, always loved us, and he has no idea what kind of double life Mom has been leading. During this phone call, I completely lost it. I just blurted out that Evie was a coward and a liar for not saying anything. That Mom was a horrible person for lying about who the father of her child was. I screamed that Kai deserves the truth, and Evie just yelled back at me to shut up, that I didn't understand the consequences. I finally hung up because I couldn't take it anymore. I cried and shook, unable to comprehend anything. What should I do? Should I tell him the truth and risk destroying the whole family? Update 1. Thank you for all your responses. Most people seem to think that I should confront her and that Dad will be better off knowing the truth. So one afternoon, I went to my parents' house and asked to talk to her alone. She immediately knew something was wrong because I was completely pale. I pulled out the letters, which I had printed from the pictures I took. I asked her to explain herself. She went pale as a ghost and tried to snatch them from me, but I pulled them away. She stammered something about how those were old papers that weren't relevant anymore and that I shouldn't meddle. I was boiling with anger. I told her she couldn't fool me. I'm 28 years old, and I fully understand what's written in those letters. I asked her straight out, Is Kai not my father? She looked down at the floor and mumbled, I don't know. She said it wasn't certain, she wasn't sure, but yes, she had had an affair in the late 80s and early 90s. And that man had initiated some kind of discussion with her when she became pregnant, but she had refused to let him into our lives. I asked her how she could do this, lie to me, lie to Kai, lie to everyone. She became defensive, started saying that she had her reasons, that she was unhappy, that she needed excitement, but that she still loved him. We quickly started yelling at each other, and in the end, I gave her a week to tell him. Otherwise, I would. Then she went completely cold and said that if I wanted to destroy this family, then go ahead. I pointed out that I wasn't the one who destroyed it, she did. She got even more furious, raised her voice, and said I was ungrateful, that I never understood her sacrifices, blah blah blah. That was more or less how the confrontation went down. There was so much shouting that I don't remember everything. Oh, and one more thing. I started wondering if my sister, who had been so adamantly defending and covering for Mom, really had a clean conscience herself. So one evening, when she went to the bathroom, I grabbed her phone while it was unlocked. There was no doubt, she was cheating on her fiancé, whom she was supposed to marry next summer. That explained a lot. I'm considering telling her fiancé. I'll update if anything else happens. Update 2. After I gave them a deadline, Mom and Evie started a real witch hunt against me. They called me constantly, trying to make me back down. They said all kinds of things, threatened that I would lose my family, that I would be thrown out of their lives, that they would never forgive me if I shattered Kai. I tried talking to Evie, but she just kept repeating that I didn't understand how hard this was. She kept saying the same thing over and over, Mom feels better when she cheats. She wants an open relationship, but Kai has said no. But since she loves him, she doesn't want to leave him, so she has kept everything secret. Evie claimed that the fact that Mom cheats might actually make her happier and a better mother. I don't get it. Is she brainwashed? Does she actually believe that? I stood my ground with my ultimatum. Time passed. Nothing happened. Mom and Evie kept pressuring me, but I held firm. Finally, the day came, and I realized that they hadn't told him anything. I gathered my courage and went to the house. Kai and Mom were both there, and I asked to speak with Dad alone. Mom became hysterical, trying to prevent it, but I said I needed to talk to him privately. Kai could tell that something serious was going on, so he asked Mom to calm down and followed me out onto the porch. I was shaking with nerves. I told him everything. Without trying to soften or sugarcoat anything. He didn't say anything for a long time. He stared at the ground and shook his head. After a few minutes, he looked up, and I saw that his eyes were filled with tears. Then I saw the anger start to rise. He went back inside the house, and I followed. Mom was standing in the hallway, looking panicked, and Evie was there too. He screamed and demanded to know if I was his daughter. Mom started stammering, saying she wasn't sure. He just kept screaming. I had never seen him like that before. I stepped back because it was really unsettling. I understand him, but it was still terrifying to see him so furious. Evie tried to interfere, yelling at me that I was a traitor. Mom shouted at me that I was ruining everything. It was just non-stop screaming for maybe 15 minutes. Kai stormed into the bedroom, threw out a suitcase, and started stuffing Mom's clothes into it. Mom yelled that he couldn't throw her out of her own house, but he snapped that she had to leave, or at the very least, he would. I don't think I've ever seen a person so enraged. Mom actually had to leave. Then Kai drove off in his car, I don't know where. I just stood there shaking. Evie tried to stop me and said I was horrible, that I had destroyed our family. When I got home, I broke down. I've been trying to reach Dad, but he's not answering. I hope he doesn't blame me. I still see him as my dad, no matter what. Update 3. The next day, Kai called. His voice was completely empty. I asked how he was. He said he wasn't doing well at all. I tried to apologize for having to tell him so abruptly, but he cut me off and said I shouldn't apologize. He was grateful that I had been honest. He wanted to know the truth, even though it shattered him. It was a relief to hear that, but at the same time, I was devastated by his state. I asked where he was, and he told me he had rented a small cabin nearby, just to be alone. He said he needed time to think. He also said he loved me as his daughter, and nothing could change that. I started crying again because I was so relieved that he didn't reject me. Over the following days, I called him every night to check on him. I could tell he had been drinking, I could hear it in his voice, but I begged him not to drown himself in alcohol. He made no promises, but I still tried to encourage him to stay strong. After a few days, I drove to his cabin and took away all the alcohol he had there. He hugged me tightly, and I felt him shaking. I wish I could say it felt like everything was going to be okay again, but it didn't. It just felt heavy. Meanwhile, Mom and Evie ramped up their aggression towards me. Evie claimed she would ruin all my future relationships. Mom said she would cut me out of her will and that I could forget ever being part of the family again. I was devastated but also furious. That's how much Mom loved me. She would rather control me with threats than admit her own wrongdoing. Update 4. Hey, I'm back again, 3 weeks since my last update. Remember how I said I was thinking about telling Evie's fiancé that she was cheating? I hesitated, but I realized that if I had the strength to tell my dad, I had to have the strength to tell him too. So I did. He thanked me and said he appreciated my honesty. A few hours later, he texted me he had dumped Evie on the spot. She went completely berserk, sending me the most grotesque insults imaginable. I blocked her everywhere. Now, everything was completely chaotic in the family. Of course, Kai and Mom couldn't continue living together. He threw her out, and she moved in with a friend or something like that. I barely had any contact with her because she refused to talk to me unless it was to yell at me. Kai told me he was planning to file for divorce. Update 5. It's now been 2 months since everything exploded. Kai has officially filed for divorce. He has also told all their mutual friends, relatives, and acquaintances what happened, so Mom is now pretty much alone and has lost a lot of her social circle. Probably because she has essentially lied to everyone for years. Evie has also lost friends who don't want anything to do with her after hearing that she helped cover up Mom's lies to their own father and cheated on her fiancé. I know this sounds like a soap opera, but this is my real life. These past months have been absolutely draining. I've gone back and forth between relief and anxiety, between anger and grief. I can't even describe how emotionally exhausting it has been. I love Kai just as much as I always have. I try to be there for him, calling him every day or at least sending him a message to check on him. He's not doing well, but he's hanging in there. He says I am his daughter no matter what. Because he raised me, watched me grow up, and loved me the entire time. I am incredibly grateful for that because I was afraid he might start distancing himself from me. He was the one I went to when I had my first boyfriend. He was the one who approved him. I went to him when I got dumped for the first time and was heartbroken. Maybe I even yelled at him when he tried to help me. I went to him when I got my first period, when I fell in love for the first time and didn't understand my feelings. I have asked him for advice my whole life, and he has always been there. Some people suggested I take a DNA test. But honestly, I don't know if I care. He sees me as his daughter, and I see him as my dad. Nothing else matters. I haven't talked much to Mom. The few times we have spoken, it was just her spewing anger and accusations at me. I told her I don't want to talk until she can admit what she has done and apologize. She refuses. She says she has nothing to apologize for because I'm an adult and shouldn't meddle in her private life. To me, that is completely absurd. What private life? lying about a child's paternity for 28 years is not a small personal issue. I have blocked Evie everywhere because she became so vile towards me. I suppose she feels betrayed too. But honestly, I feel no sympathy for her. She seems to have inherited Mom's manipulative tendencies. Maybe one day we can rebuild some kind of relationship, but right now, things are ice cold. Right now, I'm just letting things take their course. Kai and Mom are dealing with the divorce paperwork, and I assume he will try to get some financial justice, even though they have been together for so long that there are a lot of legal things to sort out. I don't really know how it works when you get divorced after such a long marriage, but I assume he might have to pay her some kind of spousal support or something. But he says he doesn't care about the money, he just wants to be free from her and her lies. I know some of you might think I should feel relieved. And in a way, I do, because it feels like I freed myself from the lies by being honest with my dad. But at the same time, I am completely heartbroken. But the most important thing is that Kai and I have a stronger bond than ever. Ironically, this whole crisis has brought us even closer. I call him every day. I feel like he needs me, and I need him. He is and always will be my father, no matter what the biological truth is. I admire him so deeply for having the strength to keep going, to stand tall after having his heart shattered. Many have asked if I plan to look for my biological father. I don't even know who he is. The letters mentioned a name, but I don't know where he lives or if he is even alive. I'm not sure if I even want to. So much has already collapsed in my life, and I can't handle more drama. Mom could probably tell me where to find him, but right now, I refuse to communicate with her. So, yeah. That's the latest, and possibly final, update. I am completely emotionally drained, but I still want to believe that I did the right thing.
If you liked this story, please subscribe and give us a thumbs up. It helps a lot, and you won't miss out on any future stories. Take care and live your best life.